This is a podcast of 98FM's Dublin Talks. Remember, catch the show live Monday to Friday at 10 a.m.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
98FM.
If you are a parent of a child who's going back to school in a couple of weeks, be it primary or secondary, you'll be only too well aware of the expense and cost of getting a child ready for school. Uniforms and books and voluntary contributions and everything else can add up to hundreds of euro. We do have a back-to-school allowance for parents who are struggling to make ends meet, but sometimes that isn't even enough. A report out today has shown that many parents are finding it difficult to cover the costs of sending their children back to school, even with the back-to-school allowance. 1/3 of families are now relying on loans to cover the back-to-school costs. Research out today has found that to send a child back to primary school will cost €584 on average. For secondary, it's 1,236. And that's just one child. Now, if you qualify for the back-to-school allowance, you're entitled to €125 per child when they're in primary and €250 when they're in secondary. But Juanita said this is not enough. Just bought all my 10-year-old's books for school and his uniform. Cost me over €400. The back-to-school allowance doesn't even cover this. School uniform alone and tracksuit was €200. It's a disgrace. Emma, you're on Dublin's 98FM. How are you, Emma?
Hi.
Emma, that's a lot of money to be sending children back to school. Can you understand why some people are complaining that the back-to-school allowance is not sufficient?
I can totally understand it. And listen, I've been there. I've been on the social welfare side of the coin, and now I'm just lucky not to be. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's not meant to cover. It's meant to be a helping hand. Like, I think the bigger issue here is that it's the cost of the school uniforms, it's the cost of the books. It's not what we're being given or what anybody's being given as a helping hand. It's I'm a firm believer that all these uniform shops should be done away with, and the school uniforms should be more generic, that we should be able to buy them either off the school or else the likes of Dunn's, Tesco, Aldi. I don't see why all these fancy uniforms have to exist. Why not buy a jumper and go into the school and buy a crest and pop it on?
Yeah.
I don't think it's what the government is giving people to help. I think it's the shops that's selling the stuff. Yes, you can say they're being taxed and all this stuff as well, and they have to pay stuff. But maybe there should be a new system brought in that, uniforms can be bought anywhere. You don't have to be sucked into having to go to that one shop to buy this whole uniform, and that's why it's costing so much.
Okay, but when I read, and no, I get what you're saying about uniforms and school books, and I know there have been various different schemes with regard to school books, and there's been various schemes around uniforms.
Some places do the book rental, some places don't.
Yeah, which is a great idea. But when I hear that the cost on average for sending a child back to secondary school is €1,236, with a back-to-school allowance of just €250, that leaves €1,000 to come up with.
But do you not think then the government should be going back to the drawing board, not what they're giving us, but going back to the likes of the organisation of the places that sell the books, the places that sell the uniforms, and the places, as I said, you have to go to a uniform shop, and sometimes you can only go to one uniform shop. Sometimes, I remember my school uniform, my mum had to go to Arnott's, and it cost a fortune, and they went to the credit union. I know people do that, but I don't think the problem is what we're being given. I think it's where we have to go to get it.
Okay, do me a favour, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp us on 0877 98 98 98. Pádraig, you're on 98FM. How are you, Pádraig?
Not too bad, as they say.
Good. Now, you believe that the back-to-school allowance should be scrapped altogether. Why?
Exactly. Look, it's absolute joke. I was talking to my Polish neighbour, and he says they get the equivalent of €10. So, and in Africa it would be zero, Asia zero. So let's get real here.
But we don't live in Africa or Asia.
No, you're quite right. But Africa and Asia and Eastern Europe have decided to live in Ireland. Now, so that is relevant to the conversation. And it's not just Irish people that do avail of all these freebies. And I just cannot understand how the taxpayer can sustain this, Adrian. mean, Ireland is a welfare wonderland. There is benefits for everything. There's back-to-school allowance, there's rent allowance, there's whatever you have in yourself allowance. If you're depressed, you can get an allowance. It's crazy. It should be done away with, because it's just complete this handout culture.
Okay, but hang on, Pádraig. If you're struggling money-wise, a cost of €1,236 to send your child back to school is a lot of money.
A lot of money. How did people manage years ago and had 10 children pre-welfare state, Adrian? Get real here. Like I said, a lot of these countries, they can't add them in, as they say in Cockney rhyming slang, they can't add them and leave it here because they won the lottery. Absolutely won the lottery.
Okay, stay there for 1 second. You want to see the back-to-school allowance scrapped full stop? Okay, stay there. If you're somebody who depends on it, I'd love to hear from you on 6797 981. Pádraig, I have to ask the question again. There are many people who are struggling, who are finding themselves having to take out bank loans in order to just get their kids back to school. We should be helping people like that, shouldn't we?
Hold on, Adrian. They're struggling. Last time I looked at this juncture, we are in Ireland 2018, full employment. Anybody that wants a job can get a job. As regards people on low pay, whatever. Look, an Irish guy told me a couple of years ago, Adrian. Do you know what he said to me? He said that few quid I get off the back to school is my spending money for Lanzarote. Now, and then we also have foreign nationals, Nigerians and Eastern Europeans, sending this money back to their countries of origin. It's an absolute outrage.
Okay, stay there for a second. Now, where am I going next? Mark, you're on 98FM. How are you, Mark?
How you doing?
In fact, Mark, that was your point, that many parents don't even use the back-to-school allowance for their children.
No, so I heard at the post office there last week, they were talking about going out on nights out when they get their back-to-school allowance and getting cans, and they get the money for the books off the Vinnies then, you know?
But they still probably had to pay for their kids to go back to school, didn't they? Or don't they?
You have to pay, yeah. Of course you have to pay, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll spend the money they get, and then they'll sponge off the Vince and the Paul down and say they're short money, you don't have money for books and the uniforms and all. Right,
so they, as far as you're concerned, obviously don't need the money.
No, they just use it as a means of going out. It's like the children's allowance. You don't spend that on the kids, you use it as a night going out.
I know, but if they're on a certain income level, they're entitled to it, aren't they?
Oh, they're entitled to it, yeah. Everyone's entitled to it. No. Use it productively or not, you know?
Not everyone is entitled to it. That's the reality. If you're below a certain income threshold, you're entitled to it. But if you're not, then you're not, basically. There's
plenty of people are entitled to it, and they do use it. What the purpose is getting used for. But there's plenty of people that abuse it as well.
Okay, well, stay there. Jackie, you're on 98FM. Hi, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Adrian.
How are you,
See
Jackie?
them two gobshites that are talking about. One, Pádraig. Who do you think you are saying that we shouldn't be allowed to have this money? I have one child over in Dubai, a doctor, and one child going into 5th year. And I'm a lone parent. I depend on that money.
Okay,
and the other little gobshite as well, that's saying that we shouldn't have it. It should be scrapped about the cans and all that.
Yeah.
What about the ones that do need it?
Right, okay.
It's already after being cut down by €50.
Take a breather for a second.
I will, yeah.
Okay.
Because they have no idea what it's like to raise a child when you need that money.
Okay, so your child in secondary going into 5th year.
Yeah, and the books are only €291.
Okay, so what difference does that $250 that you get in the back to school allowance make to you?
A hell of a lot. A hell of a lot. I put it straight into the book shop, and it's off the books.
Okay, right. So you use it directly.
Everything else is from my pocket,
and
not the government.
My
pocket.
How much will it cost to send him to secondary to 5th year? How much overall is it going to cost you?
Well, after the books and his uniform, and when he gets back to school, it's going to cost over £1,000.
Over £1,000, okay.
Yeah.
So the 250, it doesn't pay for it all, obviously, but it...
Jesus Christ. Jesus, it's like, I really depend on that.
Okay. Porrick.
And the back, you see, they call it the allowance every month. That goes to my son. That gets put in his pocket. For him, he has a little girlfriend.
Yes, this is the back to school allowance.
Yeah, but like, you're all talking about it should be scrapped. And get a woman on the phone. Get a woman on the phone that agrees with me.
We will, any minute now. Stay there for a second, Jackie. Porrick, this woman is a lone parent, is lashing out over €1,000 for her young fella to go back to school in September. 250 quid is a help. It doesn't go all the way, but it's a help. And you want to take that offer?
Well, Adrian, at the risk of being condescending or patronising to this woman, would it be fair to deduce from her diction that she is a woman of limited intelligence?
What's that supposed to mean, Porrick?
Excuse me, I am a chef. I went to 5th year
You're a
in
chef?
college. Yes, I went to 5 years in college.
Hold on a sec.
I done my intersect. I done fucking everything.
Jackie.
Don't you dare
Jackie.
tell me.
Okay, Jackie, relax.
Don't you dare tell me I'm limited in education because I have it all.
Okay, Jackie, you don't have to justify yourself by any stretch of the imagination. Okay.
But like, how dare he say that I'm limited in education? Why is he trying to say that
I don't know.
people that haven't got money?
Okay, Jackie,
Jackie,
you're giving me a bloody headache here. Relax
all
there
right.
for a second, okay? Calm down. At the end of the day, you need this money. You're obviously not working as a chef at the minute, are you?
I'm not at the moment.
Right, okay. So you depend on this money. Porrick,
Oh, definitely.
250 quid is not a lot of money.
It's nothing. I put it off his books.
Okay.
And I have to go out and buy his uniform. And I have to pay that
Jackie.
Hold on, Adrian.
Is kicking in now. Go on, Porrick, yeah.
She said she has a son in Dubai. What's he doing in Dubai?
He's a doctor.
He's a doctor. He's a hematologist.
Oh, did you marry a Muslim?
Oh, here, Porrick, get off the line. I'm not listening to this rubbish. John, you're on 98FM. How are you, John?
How are you, Adrian?
I'm good, thanks, John. John, there are people who believe that you should not be depending on this money, and in fact, the state shouldn't be giving you this money.
No. Look, well, first off, Porrick let himself down there. Even though I didn't agree with him, he let himself down. So I just want to get that out of the way.
Yeah, he did. That's why I'm after cutting him off, to be honest with you. And he starts going into this Muslim crap and...
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if he lacking in education.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, I wonder if people like Porrick and people like Mark have they ever taken a handout themselves? And they'll probably say, no, I never have. But if you have a child yourself, automatically you get children's allowance. That's a handout. You get that. If you have 40 grand saved up and you want to get a mortgage, the bank give you a handout. That's a handout. I mean, people sometimes need a helping hand to get themselves by. My own mother. Now, Jackie, I'm not a woman myself, but I'm on the same page. My mother had 6 children. She worked every day with us, but she still couldn't afford it. We had to get second-hand uniforms. I was going into 4th year of school. I had a uniform that fit a 6th year. We got books that had answers written in the back pages because they were used by about 4 different children before me. We had to do whatever we could to get us through school. You know, why can't people have a helping hand? If people are working, and maybe they're not in the best paid jobs, but they're working, they're putting money back into this country through their taxes. So why aren't they allowed to have a little bit of a helping hand to get their children to school so that their children can become doctors and go to Dubai?
Well, let me read a message that I got just a while ago, and it basically says... my son is in secondary school. The back to school paid for his book rental and mock exams. His jumper still fits from last year, and he looked after it and bought 2 shirts, blah, 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 blah. But basically what she's saying, if you have kids, you have to remember they need to go to school, so budget and buy it bit by bit. In other words, you know, it's not like last January you didn't know the kids were going to have to go back to school in September, because you did. So plan and budget for it.
Obviously not, but you didn't know that the shower was going to go bust. You didn't know that you were going to need a new washing machine. Things happen in life, Adrian, where budgets have to be digged into. Name anybody who's ever had a budget that they haven't had to say, you know what, I'll take 150 out of that to get this done, and I'll be able to save it up by next month. Life is life, Adrian. Things happen. You know, no, we're not all rich living in mansions. We have to do what we have to do to get by, and sometimes budgets get digged into, and then you struggle, unfortunately. Such is life.
Okay. Do you believe that the back-to-school allowance should be increased?
I don't think it should just be tick the box and that's it, that increase across the board. Look at people's situation, and if you can tell that person 100% needs a little bit more of a helping hand to get their children to school, so their children don't find themselves hanging out on street corners at night, not going to school. If you can 100% say that person needs it, yes, absolutely increase it. Give that child the best chance it can have. 100%, Adrian.
Okay, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. Where am I going now? Samantha, you're on 98FM. Hiya, Samantha.
Hi, Adrian.
Now, what did you want to say on this?
Well, I do agree that it should be hard a little bit, because I know people are saying 250 is what you get, but it's actually lower for a primary school child.
No, I know that.
You know?
No, I did mention that earlier on. It's 125 for a primary school child and 250 for a secondary school child.
Now, I have my little fella starting junior infants in September, and his uniform was €200 alone. I had to give the school €80 for insurance and photocopying charges. It was another 50 for his books, and I haven't even got him skill duels yet. So that's over €300 for a child going into junior infants, which is crazy money, I think.
And that's just going to get more and more and more and more
as he gets older. Yeah. Now I'm work, so I don't get the back to school allowance, but I have had to put money by, but it's still been a struggle because I still have rent and bills to pay, you know, and I just didn't think it would ever be that price to send a child to junior infants, you know.
It does seem like an awful lot of money for a little baby going to school. Yeah,
like he's 4, and a uniform for a 4-year-old to be €200. I can only imagine what the prices get to as he gets older, like, you know. But I was even shocked at the cost of €50 for books, you know. It's 3 books he got, and that's what it came to. And I'm sure throughout the year the school will be looking for more money, as always, you know. Even though you've handed over €80 for insurance, photocopying, and I think that was his art and crafts materials as well. But I just feel for people out there that are in a tough situation and could do with more money. And I just don't think it nearly covers the bill of going back to school, you know. Not everyone can afford to put money by every week, because stuff does happen in houses, washing machines breaks, you need something else, you know, where the kids are growing out of stuff and need something else, you know. So it could do with being raised for the people that really need it, you know.
And by the sounds of it, from a lot of the calls that we're getting, lots of people do desperately need it. And there has been a delay. I know there's been a delay in getting the money to people. The Minister has been talking about that earlier today. Let's see what the Minister has said. Welfare officers have asked families to bear with them as they clear a backlog for the back-to-school and clothing and footwear allowance. The Department of Social Protection is experiencing delays in processing payments due to a combination of technical issues and a high volume of new applications. Around 150,000 families a year receive the means-tested payment, last year that is, but more have applied for it this year. Let's put this into perspective. Certain people, depending on your income level, get €125 for primary school children, and €250 is on offer for secondary school pupils. But down under in Australia, Geraldine, you get absolutely nothing.
That's exactly correct. I'm actually from Ireland, and I've lived out here since 1989. I've got 2 boys, They're both in a high school, but yeah, we absolutely get nothing for children. So you're expected to meet all costs. Now you can either put them in public or private school. We took them out of private because the children weren't excelling. They're excelling better in public school.
Right.
But automatically when they go into high school, you're expected, even sometimes in year 6, which is the last year of primary school, when they go into high school in year 7 or first grade, I guess, back home, they classify you as having a child that needs a MacBook or a Mac Pro or some sort of laptop, depending on what the school uses, and you must buy the computer that they require you to have.
Okay, so starting secondary school, for example, you can be told, we expect your child to have a MacBook Pro, which could cost like two grand.
About 2,500, yeah.
Right.
So my youngest went into high school last year, and we had to buy him a MacBook Pro. Because he's doing graphics and media design in school. That's part of the syllabus that he was selected to do. They put him on a scholarship for that because he was excelling in certain things in primary, so they put him into that syllabus. So that wasn't the only thing. I mean, when I was back in Ireland last year, I actually had to buy him this sketch pad, which is about €300 or €400, which I bought over there because I couldn't get it in Australia. So that was on top of that, plus his books, plus uniform. They have to use these complicated calculators, which are about, here is about $400. So, you know, all those things get added on. Plus, you're right, the uniforms are existentially priced. It's ridiculous what they cost. But unfortunately, the kids will actually get pinged and sent home if they're actually not wearing the right uniform.
No, the same thing would happen here as well. As somebody who's lived in Australia for nearly 30 years, with children in school, you get no help at all from the state?
No.
Even people who might desperately need it?
No, they get nothing. Absolutely nothing. You'd have to be really with no employment at all for at least 3 years before you would get any sort of help in regards to schools. I mean, the schools will, you know, they will try with the uniform shops. You know how they have second-hand clothes and so forth in the schools. Sometimes they sell it through the schools. They will sometimes offer stuff like that, but they won't actually get physical help. But you'd have to be really, you know, classified as someone who really can't afford to send the child to school. Okay,
but somebody who's on low income or whatever will get no help at all?
No, nothing.
So when you hear...
I'd actually like to be back home so the kids could get the little bonus that they get right now.
Well, that's what I was about to say. When you hear people complain that the €250 allowance, back-to-school allowance, isn't sufficient, have they little to be complaining about?
Not so much as they've got little to complain about. I mean, some people really do need it, and it's great that that is an available option for them. But I guess the costs out here are really quite exorbitant to send a child to school. It's an expectation, even in primary, that they have an iPad from year 5 and year 6. And then in high school, you have a laptop. Now, the books are on top of that, where, you know, the older son's in year 11, he's got a Mac Air, and his was, you know, they only last 3 years generally. So his had to be replaced last year to get him another new one again. So they just, you know, every 3 years you're really up for another 2,500 or so just to get another laptop to keep that moving through. So they'll have about 2 of them to go through high school.
Okay, but putting children through school in Australia is as expensive, if not more expensive, than it is here, and you get no help from the state at all?
No, none at all.
But
right. Yeah, it's probably more expensive in that regard.
Carol, sending 5 children back to school must be very expensive.
It costs a few bob, all right.
Have you worked out how much?
Well, I mean, for a pair of school trousers, just one pair. Now, I mean, I know people are saying, oh, in my day, you bought a pair of school trousers and they did it for the entirety of your education. But one of my children was 5'8" when he went to school last year, and this year he's 6'2", right? So we should buy him a replacement pair of trousers at €42, which wouldn't be entirely terrible because he's going to wear them 4 days a week for the next 40 weeks. They don't even do his size.
Oh, right, okay.
That's a 36-inch leg, and the longest leg you can get is 33.
Oh.
Right? Because the school has a particular pinstripe. So now we have school suppliers who have contracts with schools to provide uniforms that they can't even provide to fit. Now, I could go to Dunn's and buy him a pair of navy trousers for maybe €25, and that'd be the good quality stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot get him school trousers to fit him. He's going to be going to school with 3 inches short on his ankles.
Wow.
And he's only 15.
Right. So
he's a hell of a lot of growth to go.
That's what I was about to say. They haven't kept with the times that teenagers are much taller now than they ever were.
No. And I mean, he's not by no stretch is he the tallest kid in the school. There's some far taller than him, and they look totally ridiculous. Because there's conformance on socks, you have to have conformance on shoes. So I know that it's fashionable for your ankles to be on view now, but not when you're wearing white school socks, isn't it?
So in terms, do you qualify for the back to school allowance?
No, I don't.
You don't, right. Okay,
no, I don't. And the reason I don't is because my husband works and I'm in receipt of a carer's allowance. So carer's allowance is considered means.
Right.
So me having carer's allowance, I have carer's allowance because my children have autism, and I had to give up work. I was in employment, and I had to give it up because I could not provide the level of care needed whilst working, and I could not afford for somebody else with the skills required to provide for it. So I had to give up work, and I was given a pittance of a carer's allowance that puts us beyond a back to school allowance.
Right, okay.
So it's this year, I paid for my daughter's iPad. She's starting secondary school, and I paid for her iPad only yesterday. And for the iPad and the insurance and the package that you need to buy in order for them to restrict the access for whatever websites they might want to go on, was €490. Now, the Apple Pen was optional. That's a $4.99. So I opted out of that because I thought, well, I don't have another €99 for a pen.
Okay, so it's literally gone down to that you've to pick and choose what you're going to spend the money on.
What parts I can afford. Yes, absolutely. I also went down to the local charity shops to see was there any uniforms in good nick. I mean, when I went to school, my mother was on her own because she was a deserter's wife, and every year we had brand new school bags, brand new shoes, right? Every year, without fail. My kids don't have that luxury, and my husband works 60 hours a week. Right?
And I do realise that for many people, especially when you've got 5 kids, it's very expensive. But when you're just slightly above that income threshold...
I think we're €11 over the threshold.
Really?
And it costs us what we would have been getting nearly €1,000, €1,300 maybe towards the cost, but we get nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't begrudge the people that get it because, by God, they need it. What I want to happen and what I've asked to happen year on year is for the cost of going back to school to be reduced. I mean, your man, the Minister for Education, brought in the uniform thing. He changed it that they would have to be generic, but the schools aren't complying, and there's no one forcing compliance, and that has to happen. Likewise, we have school book providers, the publishers. They're charging extortionate rates for the school books, and now what they're doing is every 2 or 3 years they're changing them. It's 3rd edition, 19th edition. And so you don't even have, years ago, you used to be able to pass the books on to the next person coming up. I have one son going into 6th year, and his books didn't do his brother, who's 2 years behind him, because they're all new editions. You know, so I'm sitting with maybe €500 worth of books that's useless, that's going to go into the recycling bin, and the new edition might be 4 pages that's different, but the schools are insisting upon it. It's not negotiable.
That's an awful pay. €11 is the difference between you qualifying for the back to school allowance and not. My God, that's
ridiculous. And then I saw comments on your thing where if you increase your life insurance, you can get it. I don't know how that works because we have a big mortgage and none of our outgoings is counting. Like, I did fill in the form.
And come here, just as a by the way, I work for Dunn's. We do all different length in school trousers.
Yeah.
Says that message that's just come in. So
yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, when you're paying €42, I mean, you'd expect them to be made to measure. Maybe not quite made to measure, but Jesus Christ, 36-inch leg is not that phenomenal for full-grown adult men. You know what I mean? I mean, my husband takes a 36-inch leg and he can go in and buy jeans off the rack. He doesn't have to get them specially made or anything. You know, he's not extortionately tall. He's only 6'2".
All right, good to talk to you. Thanks very much, Lee, for
Thanks
your call, Carol.
This is a podcast of 98FM's Dublin Talks. Remember, catch the show live Monday to Friday at 10 a.m.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
98FM.